Okay, this is part 2. In part 1, we talked about how we could just count the number of squares. Using that, we know that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 units. But if we got to bigger and bigger things, it would be harder and harder to just count them up. It seems like there's a better way. Well, one way to do it would be to say, we know how multiplication works. If I have 4 rows here, and each row has 3 things in it. Sorry about that. I can just do 4 times 3. And I know there are 12 squares here. So now you should also look at your formula chart that we got out and consider rectangles and parallelograms, base times height. This is literally where this formula comes from. Because literally, if I'm talking about rectangles or squares, the number of squares across this side, there's 3 squares here and 3 squares there. Length, base times height, gives us the number of square units in here, and it gives us the area. Now, it also said parallelogram. So this is the same size as this one, but I don't want to find the area of this rectangle. I want to find the area of this parallelogram. Well, do you see that if I take this chunk right here and move it over, it would exactly fit in that? I could just slide it over and it would fit right there. So is this new parallelogram the same size as this rectangle? It is, because literally this is exactly the same size as that part. That's why this one is, again, just the base times the height. It has no difference where I cut it. If I cut it farther over, like this, and made this the parallelogram, it would still be the same base and height, because I'm still taking this chunk and moving it to this side. So parallelogram, also just area equals base times height. And this one would be 4 times 3. Now what about if I take this same rectangle, that one there, and I cut it in half? Do I end up with 2 triangles that are exactly the same size? I do. This one's the same size as that one. So it's literally, a triangle is literally half of a rectangle. You can do the formula like this, and I know this is what it says on your formula sheet. But you can also do the formula like this. It's also just base times height, and then take and divide it by 2, because there's 2 triangles here. This and this will give you the same information. You can also just do 0.5 base times height. I often think this one is easier to type in my calculator, 0.5 times this. Alright, so now let's use these formulas on some actual problems, like what you're going to really have. Base times height. Sorry about that. 800. And I do have units here. We didn't have units up here. Now I have units, so this should be yards squared. The next one, 22 times 22. And that's 484 feet squared. Base, notice that even though it's on the top, it's still the base, because we know in a parallelogram those sides are equal. Base times height. Yards squared. Sorry about that. And our triangle, 1/2, 26 times 21. Yards squared. You could also enter it like this. That's this formula. Or you could enter it like this. You get the same answer no matter which of these three formulas you choose to use in your calculator. Same answer. I would suggest you pick the one you like best and always use the same one.